Hey everybody, Red. One more thing I wanted to add, and yes, I did switch shirts. I just tried to upload the video that I'm going to follow up after this, and YouTube would not allow it. I guess because of the title. So I'm having to switch up the title. I don't know what it'll be. I'll think of it once I upload it and edit it. I want to add this to the video you're about to see, and that is two things. The war on drugs still going on. We still haven't figured out how do we get drugs off the street. Keep that in mind when we're talking about gun control. Secondly, drunk drivers. Drunk drivers kill hundreds, thousands of people each year. Thousands of people. You have those drunk drivers that will not stop drinking. They've had 3 or 4 DWIs. They've lost their license. And you know what? They're still out there driving somehow. Somehow they have accessible to a car because the dealership sold it to them. So maybe they bought it from an individual, private sale. Maybe a family member loaned it to them. You keep that in mind when we're talking about gun control. You want to know how criminals or people end up with firearms that shouldn't have them? Ask yourself that question when people end up with vehicles that should not be driving, either because they've had their license taken away from them, they've had 3 or 4 DWIs, they have a family member that loaned them a vehicle, they're here illegally or from another country and don't have a license to drive, but they supposedly know how to drive, and they have an accident and they have no insurance, and you wonder how the hell did they get a hold of a vehicle. It happens through private sale. You go to a dealership, you're not required to have a driver's license to buy a vehicle. You can say, hey, I want to buy that vehicle for my wife or my daughter. Here's the cash. They give you the car. I don't know what the rules are in each state to drive off the lot with that, but I'm sure you can find a way around that. Remember that when we're talking about gun control. Vehicles is a big market out there, and if you restricted that market or took away vehicles from people owning them, or certain vehicles that people couldn't, let's say the big trucks or the SUVs are comparable to ARs and AKs, and you said, hey, you know what, we want to take this off the market because too many people are getting hurt. People are using SUVs and trucks to run people over, to do illegal stuff. They're stealing stuff and throwing it in the back of the truck. So we want to ban that. It sounds silly, doesn't it? The idea of, oh, because certain individuals are using it illegally and using it for the non-intent it was intended for, they're turning it around and using it for legal crimes or crimes against others. We're going to restrict everyone and we're going to ban that against everyone. You remember that. That is the closest perfect analogy that I can use when we're talking about gun rights and taking them away from other people. I'm going to insert the clip that I just got, that I screenshotted, and then I'm going to start the video. Alright, sorry it's a long video, guys, but I hope you enjoy it, and I'll have to come up with a new title. Right out. Hey everybody, Red October. Gun control, gun debate. It's a topic that I think many of us just shake our heads at, and we're just like, oh, when does it end? Here's the problem with the news media. They always ask the wrong questions. They always approach it in the wrong manner, and they don't ask the right people. And I say that because they don't ask individuals like you and me what we think, or what our opinion is, or where our stance is, or what we think. They don't approach it right, because if you approach a person on the opposite end of whatever it is you're talking about, and you're pointing the finger and you're just, baffled at the idea, how do you think the other side feels about you? Gun rules, gun laws, stricter background check. It can be done. I'd be willing to come to the table with some ideas and say, okay, let's do this, but it's a give and take. And know that you have requests, we have requests. The question is, what are you going to do with all the other guns out there that are in circulation that people have had stolen? They're owned by criminals. They're out there. What are you going to do with those guns? You think they're just going to magically surface at the police station, or they're just going to show up at the front door saying, hey, here's all these illegal guns. What are you going to do with them? Criminals are not going to give up their guns. They're not going to stop the violence. And the only way to prevent that is, or stop that, is to allow citizens to arm themselves and say, I want to protect myself. I want to protect what I have. I want to protect my family. How do you do that if you're going to impact or take away people's rights to own firearms? I know there's many levels and debates of the ARs, the AKs, the rifles, semi-automatic, versus someone owning a shotgun or a pistol. Then you get into other fields as far as, well, capacity. How many bullets should be in the gun? Where can you carry the gun? How many guns can you own? Stricter background. What are you going to do with those that have mental issues? Maybe they didn't have a mental issue when they bought the gun, and now years later they have a mental issue. How are you going to follow up with those people? You're going to do service checks and say, hey, we're going to come check you every 2 years, make sure you're not mentally unstable. What happens when they have a moment between that period and they lose it because of a divorce or kids, or somebody broke into their house, and they just lost it? What do you do? How do you persecute those that need to be persecuted without persecuting everyone else that is law-abiding citizen that follows the rules, that is using it in the right manner for its intention, whether it's for sport, hunting, or defensive use? How do you pass rules that don't impact those individuals without persecuting everyone in America? There are ways to approach this. You just have to figure out a way to approach it. Asking individual citizens like myself, hey, what do you think? Can you bring something to the table? Here's one idea I'll share with you guys out there. Make it accessible for individuals like myself, everyday person that says, hey, I want to sell a gun to Joe Blow, but I want to make sure he doesn't have a history. Have a database that I can type in his driver's license or ID and make sure he doesn't have any warrants or felonies or criminal history. Doesn't have to be detailed, but just, is there something pending? Secondly, have a database accessible to check that firearm, make sure it's not stolen or hot or illegal. There's no way for citizens to do that. That's a starting point. Yet you have to start somewhere. You can't just say, we're gonna slam it down, that's it, we're gonna shut it down, no more guns, we're gonna make it strict. You can't put a band-aid and just fix the problem. Think of a process and say, hey, let's start here and we'll build from there. I don't think violence will ever stop, even if you were to take every single gun out of America. People will find another tool to use. People will kill other people with the knife, with the stick, with the sword, with the hammer, with a vehicle. There are other ways people will figure out or come up with to hurt other people in this world. And the thing about our country is, yes, there is gun violence. Yes, there are bad people. Yes, things happen that shouldn't happen. But there are a lot of good people in this world too. There's a lot of stories out there that the news media doesn't share of people saving other people's lives. of citizens helping a police officer getting beat down on the road, thinking, I'm about to lose my life. Yes, please shoot him. You don't hear about those stories, and if you do, it's very briefly. That's it. Gun safe zones, gun free zones. You know, people that want to commit crime are going to hit those spots all the time because they know it's unlikely I'm going to get shot by someone else that's carrying a gun. So I want to do the shooting. I don't want people shooting back at me. It starts somewhere, and you have to start somewhere. It's not going to be a one debate, one rule, one law. It's going to fix the problem. That journey of gun control or stricter gun rules, that is a long road ahead. I'll tell you that. Positions will change on that. The idea of, hey, you know what? I'll jump on board. I'm game. But I'm going to tell you this. You're not going to get everything you want. It is a give and take. So as much as you're willing to take, make sure you're willing to give. Because if I can walk away and you can walk away with not getting everything we want, that is a win-win. It truly is. Because if I don't get everything I want, you win. If you don't get everything you wanted to the table, I win. But we can compromise and come and meet each other halfway. These videos I've made, just like this one, I've made about 4 or 5 of them, and all of them go up to 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, because there's so much to talk about, and so such a little time that I'm trying to compress this all into. Unfortunately, my video will not be seen by the news media or a politician. My common sense will not be shared by those that are in power that could make a difference. The NRA will not see this video. There are a lot of good people out there that follow the rules, that are law-abiding citizens, that have no intention of harming anyone else, unless it means defending themselves in a break-in, in a robbery. Maybe it's a property. There's everyday law-abiding citizens, and those guns either stay safe in their home, stay safe on them because they're licensed to carry. They have no intention of harming anyone unless somebody brings harm to them. I really wish that I could come to the table and make a difference and say, hey, here are some ideas. But sensible people like me that do not have a name out in the world, that do not have a position of power, or I know someone that says, hey, look, I have some ideas. Here's a starting point. They'll never see this video. They'll never hear someone like me speak and say, here's an idea. It is a give and take. Because you wanting gun control affects many people across the board. And yes, people that live out in the country, it's different for people in the city and vice versa. Gun control, it's not a one-sided issue. Right out.